Earlier this week, when I was going through some old boxes, I found this. Seeing his face and the word remember caught me totally off guard. I've been seeing a lot of faces of the nearly or dearly departed here recently because I serve the funeral industry primarily. I help people to remember. I do other things as well. Lately, I've been putting together photos of friends as part of their digital monument that will be published for their family and friends to be able to visit at any time they choose to, when they just need to see their face one more time. And this has not been an easy task, but this is what God has called me to do, so He has given me the strength to do it. I sit here right now thinking about why it is that I should even do this. When I saw that copy of the Limbaugh letter from back in 2005, it's kind of haunted me. Seeing Rush's face and reading the word remember has caused me to want to share some personal remembrances of Rush Limbaugh on this, the first Open Line Friday that has taken place since we've been without him. Now, Mark Stein is on the air right now, and he says this is not Open Line Friday, and Mark is doing a great job of memorializing Rush right now. I just had to take the headphones off for a second and share my personal remembrances, because there are people that are getting through to the show today, and they do have a means to communicate condolences to the family up at rushlimbaugh.com right now. But they also provide a means for sending a video. So I just decided I'd just do a little video so I could send them a link and not have them tied up too long. I became a Rush Limbaugh fan around 1988. It was because for the very first time I was working in an office building. I'd gotten out of the Army in 1986, and my greatest desire was to be able to work in an environment where there was a roof over my head. Well, I got a job in an electrical supply warehouse, so I got walls to go with it. Later on, I got some air conditioning, and I got a desk. Imagine that. But I also got a supervisor who listened to the Rush Limbaugh show on his radio every day at his desk, and his desk was next to mine, and that's how I became a fan. Now, people who are accustomed to the world that we're living in today cannot fully imagine what the world was like when there was never anybody out there that was challenging the validity of what was being reported to us in the mainstream media. And the media made a frequent point of telling us how we feel about something, or what we think about topics of the day, or anything like that. It was contrary to what a lot of us were thinking and feeling. In fact, most of us. Nobody was ever talking about that. It was just a few channels on television, and there were some periodicals that challenged things, but there was nothing in the mainstream media, nothing in the entertainment industry that expressed the feelings of the average conservative American. Then along came this guy on the radio who gave a voice and eloquent expression to the things that most of us were thinking, and did it with an entertaining, used entertaining tools, entertaining devices to put over his points that he was trying to make. He came along and gave thought-provoking entertainment. Let's just put it that way. But it gave voice to what a lot of us were thinking, and that's why his show took off. People identified with what he was saying. They identified with him. He was like a friend to them. He was like a friend to me. And here's a story you're not going to hear from anybody else. I doubt there is another Rush Limbaugh fan who's going to tell you the story that I'm getting ready to tell you. I got to see Rush Limbaugh for the first time in 1991 in Orlando, Florida. It was during the Rush to Excellence tour. It was on a Friday night. And the following Monday, I was self-surrendering to federal prison for 1 year. Got in trouble with some other soldiers who I served with, young men doing silly things. But I had tickets to go see Rush Limbaugh, and that was one of the last things that I wanted to do before I got locked up. And I listened to him on the radio every day that whole year that I was locked up. And when he signed off at the end of every Open Line Friday, I hated the fact that I wasn't going to hear him again until the following Monday. My political worldview, outlook, whatever you want to call it, was shaped by my experiences of growing up and serving in the military at the height of the Cold War. The things I saw and fought against overseas were things that I never wanted to see here in the United States. In fact, seeing those things here in the United States for me was my second greatest personal nightmare. My first greatest personal nightmare was global nuclear war. That was my greatest fear growing up. I was was born in 1964, so it's kind of understandable. When I started hearing members of the House of Representatives and the Senate quoting things that I read in the communist propaganda literature that I had picked up overseas, the hair on the back of my neck started to stand up. And then to hear Senator Ted Kennedy quoting Fidel Castro, that was utterly shocking to me as a young man just a few years out of the U.S. Army. I mean, considering all that his brother had to deal with because of Fidel Castro, and here this guy is on the floor of the Senate quoting him. It was beyond shocking to me. Rush Limbaugh was the guy who started calling them out on it on a nationally syndicated radio show, and then at one time a television show. And we who are among his fan base believed that if we did, as he suggested we do, engage in people in conversation, that we could help save the country from the Marxist onslaught that has been underway for decades. And that's what I did. I did my best to enlighten people about where we were headed as a country if we did not address the ongoing crescendo of nonsense that was playing out in our national politics. Mostly people just laughed and offered to buy me a beer. That was about the most emotional response that I could elicit from anyone when discussions about where we are today and how we will one day get here would come up in a public place. It was all a big joke. Now we are here, and people who laughed and offered to buy me a beer are acting shocked, dismayed, angry, and asking, "What has happened to America?" My answer is, well, I guess you weren't paying attention, were you? I gave up on politics a while back. In the words of the wisest man who ever lived, vanity, vanity, all is vanity and vexation of the spirit. But I have come to a conclusion of the matter. Politicians will not save this country. I now spend my time and energy studying and sharing the word of He who can, should we choose to humble ourselves before Him as a nation in repentance. But as you are clearly able to see, most people are not capable of humility until they are humble, which is why I take great comfort in the book of Lamentations. Here we are on this first Open Line Friday without Rush Limbaugh in our world, and like the photo here says, I remember him and the work that he engaged in over all these years. I remember a country where the subjects that he discussed became examples of the Limbaugh echo syndrome or theory or whatever it was he called it, I forget. That is to say, whatever it was that he was talking about would become the next thing that the mainstream media was talking about, at great length, in fact. They replayed his words. Today, the things that Rush Limbaugh talked about are being censored. In fact, I just read something about Facebook's going to start patrolling people's comments on global climate change, because obviously that's going to be the next big legislative push to come our way. Going to be some more Green Deal nonsense, going to be some carbon tax nonsense, and just another way to rob the people of the United States of their wealth through their labor. And more, there's less fruit to steal. Today, people who repeat the words on the World Wide Web that Rush Limbaugh often use, well, they might find themselves with no social media medium to express themselves on, or perhaps communicate with their friends, at least for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I don't know how long it takes you to get, to become a lifer, I suppose. But we're living in a new day. But today, I remember another day. I remember the day when you could just turn on the radio, hear Rush Limbaugh's voice. Everybody would get outraged, but you couldn't silence the voice. But Lord, they did try. They tried everything to get that show kicked off the air. Just never happened. And as Rush said, he fought the law and he won. Suppose that's true. Right now, someone somewhere who is not on my friends list in social media is listening to this and trying to decide how it is that I should be allowed to interact with others based on what I've expressed here in a miniature eulogy of Rush Limbaugh on an Open Line Friday. Still others who are watching and listening to this are deciding how it is that I should be classified as a human being and what, if any, opportunities I should be allowed to pursue. What will be available to me in the way of any number of things. This Open Line Friday, I remember the last time I was truly free as a United States citizen. It was on an Open Line Friday. It was Friday night, July 19th, 1991. As I was in Orlando, Florida, watching Rush Limbaugh do his thing on the stage. Governor Rick Scott restored my civil rights back in 2018, and I get to vote now. Wow, I remember when that really meant something. Yes, Rush, I remember. I pray the Lord send his peace, comfort, and strength to Catherine and all the family and friends of Rush Limbaugh.